Thanks for joining us. This is Phil from Baseball Card Exchange, and we're filming here at the Baseball Card Exchange warehouse. We have Rick with us, and we have Steve with us, and today we're going to talk about the BBC operation. And so there's a lot of people that have questions in regards to what we do here and what it looks like as far as shipping, receiving, how do we sort different collections that come in. And we have the brains behind the warehouse operation, Rick, with us, and, of course, Steve. So why don't we just jump in and kind of talk about what a normal day is in the life of Baseball Card Exchange warehouse operations manager extraordinaire, Rick.
Basically, I show up in the morning, usually an hour or two before the rest of the employees show up, and I print the orders, review the orders, make any notes, anything that's going to ship out special, like FedEx overnight, etc. That all gets like pulled first so we can get that to the front of the line. But yeah, basically then the employees, Christine and Jenna, they come in and they pull the orders, and then Darren will ship them, and he will double check the orders as they go out, and that's just about it. It's that simple.
So a lot of people have asked, how big is the warehouse? And I believe it's how many square?
I believe 11,000.
11,000 square feet.
Yep.
Okay. And then, of course, for those of you that don't know, this is not where our retail location is. We have a retail location that's 2 miles north on the same road, which is another 5,000 square feet.
Yes. Yep.
So there's a lot of components that go into the warehouse and a lot of moving parts. We have authentication here. That is shipments every day delivered to us. That's where you're completing the authentication, and then we ship those back out. Then there is when I purchase deals, and there's other people that purchase deals here too. So we back up the truck, unload the truck into the warehouse, and then those are sorted out from there. Why don't we talk a little bit about what happens when a deal is bought? How does that system flow? I know many times I'm the guy that is out on the truck loading up a truck, and then we unload it. What happens the moment it is unloaded here at the warehouse?
Well, typically, once it gets unloaded, we start sorting it. Most cases, we have a good idea of what is coming, so we're ready for it. Basically, it comes in, gets unloaded, and we sort it. The first thing we sort is the vintage wax. It's going to need to be authenticated, and then that will go to Steve. Then we have the modern unopened, which is going to go here, and we're going to see, do we have it currently in stock? We need to put it in stock, reprice it. That's probably one of the biggest parts of the job is constant pricing, because it's always changing.
Yeah.
And then you got your single cards that are going to go up by Steve and his people up there. Autographs will go to Phil. We'll do those there, and then we'll probably have a little bit of scraps left for the retail store.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, and sometimes it takes.
And then, as Rick knows, there's then the leftovers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, correct.
That go onto a pallet and go into the corner to sit there for who knows how long.
Right.
Every deal has them.
Yeah. Even though we have the warehouse and the retail store, fortunately we have a storage facility across the street, and I think we're currently up to 5 10x30s that are basically just pallets of cards.
Yep.
And nothing of value. That's kind of like Steve calls it, the leftovers. And I probably won't be here long enough to get through this stuff.
It'll end up going to my daughter when I'm long and dead.
Yep.
So the leftovers, yeah, I mean, that's a good point, because I've went through some of these pallets. Matter of fact, when I started here, I think one of the first, you might remember this, Steve, there was a couple pallets that we were going through, and I got the code to the warehouse, and I said, all right, well, I'm going to come in late. And I think I stayed from like 9 o'clock to 7 a.m. I stayed all night going.
I remember that, but what was the material?
I can't remember. I think it was autographs, something to do with
okay.
autographs. And it was sort of a wild card palette. We found some really expensive items that, maybe had multiplied in value over the years. But you sort of find those hidden gems every once in a while.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I think the one that comes to mind for me is we had bought a deal many years ago. I can't remember, what was the first year of WNBA?
Late 90s?
Late 90s, right? So we had found a pallet that had a bunch of NBA sets, WNBA sets on it from back when it first came out. And when we bought it, it was, not valuable.
Garbage, you could say.
I don't want to say garbage. It was not valuable. And then all of a sudden, with the big WNBA boom, the stuff was just crazy. I mean, super valuable now. We had like these special dealer sets and stuff like that. And it's really funny because even though it was junk 10 years ago, like everything in this industry, at some point it's probably going to go up, with the exception maybe of classic games. We still can't give those away.
It's funny you just said that. We just sold a classic game, 1987 Bo Jackson PSA 10.
Yep,
Yeah.
a little
like-
over $1,000.
A little over $1,000. Well,
Immediately too.
I've
Yes.
got some of those. So,
That is probably the best classic card there is. Yes, and that actually came in a game set. That wasn't one of the travel
Correct.
sets or whatever. That was one of the original game sets, and that's
Being that
his,
it had-
college uniform. On
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
And being that it had green borders, it probably is an easy
Tough card.
10.
Yep.
very tough.
So
Yeah, so the hidden gems are always fun to find, and I mean, for us three, this is what we do. We are into sports cards, memorabilia, autographs, sets every day. However, it's absolutely impossible to keep up on all of the moving parts of the industry, and as you said, the market moving up and down on particular items, and so each day, even us three that spend most of our life doing this, we have to educate ourselves every single day.
Right.
For example, you mentioned me in autographs. Well, I love autographs. I've been studying autographs for the last 15 years. I have to spend at least, I bet you, an hour a day just studying autographs, looking at different autographs, and trying to figure out what these new guys even call it. I mean, these check marks and C's, and and most people don't even know how to write cursive anymore,
Right.
Because it's not taught in
Exactly.
school. What do you do to sort of keep up to date as much as you can on the industry, the hobby, and what's going up, what's going down?
Well, I mean, like in 1984 Topps Baseball Wax Box, we probably price the BBCE, FASC stuff. We probably price that maybe 2 or 3 times a year because it doesn't really go up or down a whole bunch. Now, during COVID, that was absolutely ridiculous. The
Right.
stuff was going up and down every day. But, nowadays, 2024, 2-3 times a year, we look at pricing. But now you get to like Otani stuff,
Yeah.
the modern stuff. That stuff's changing daily.
Yeah.
And the problem is there's so many thousands of products. Sometimes it gets stale on our site, and we got to just sit there and try to
Yeah.
redo it.
Yep.
I've noticed too, with our website, and we'll talk about our website in a moment. A lot of times I learn that something has went up by our website orders.
Yes, something
something's
gets
been sitting.
bought out.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
been sitting for 3 months, and then we sell everything. We're like, we were probably too low on this.
Somebody got hot in the league, and
But what was interesting too during the COVID craze there, with so many different things going up, I would go to shows and I would send you a text or a phone call. I'd say, I remember one product, 1982 Topps football wax.
okay.
We were low here at the warehouse, and I knew we needed some. I think you would have even given me like a little list. Hey, if you can find these, grab them. So a guy comes to the booth and says, "Here, I want to sell this, and your buy price is a little too low on this." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, let me look it up." He said, "I'm wanting, I don't know, $800 for it." I thought, we've never sold an 82 Topps football wax box for $800. And sure enough, I mean, it was like $1,100 or $1,200, something like that it sold for.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember buying it, bringing it back to you and saying, I paid $800 on this. We should probably,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And of course we sold it, but it's interesting to see those spikes in the market, and COVID was just absolutely insane with the pricing.
I remember Rick every Thursday changing prices to post on Friday weekly.
Exactly.
On a weekly basis.
But I remember something you said too, because we had other things that had gone up in value that maybe were in the process of being listed on our website. And I said, these are going for X now. Just want to let you know. And I remember you said, Steve, well, let somebody else set the price, and then we'll follow after that. But we don't want to look greedy or like we're trying to get a money grab.
Yep. It just changed so quickly during COVID.
Absolutely.
One thing I do want to bring up is you ask about the process of when you bring a truckload of stuff here.
Yes.
People are always asking me, what's my favorite part of the industry or the business, and to me, it's still the vintage cards.
Yeah.
The most enjoyable part is when I get a phone call from you and you say, "Hey, I just bought a run of top sets from 53 to present.
Oh, yeah.
They're only VG. That's the most exciting part of the whole business still for me. You know, when I want to see those sets and maybe find a gem in there or something. You unload the truck, and, you know, I let Rick go through it. I don't dare touch anything anymore. I've learned to let him sort it all out because he's going to get it to me. But that's still the best part, is when you tell me something vintage you've bought that I get to just go through because I still enjoy the cards.
I mean, I know you said a set run from 53 to, you know, whatever, but it's not completely true. I mean, I'll buy a $100,000 unopened wax deal with all kinds of cool stuff in it.
Oh, yeah.
And then maybe on the way there, I'll stop at somebody's house and buy a $6,000 vintage deal. And the only thing that you're really interested
Is it the
about
vintage
is
part?
the 6,000 small deal. You're
Yep.
like, oh, all right, what kind of, oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
And if the $100,000 wax deal has non-sport in it,
Yes.
Rick's always the first one to say, this is for my personal collection. Just let me know how much it is. You know, I haven't seen one of these in decades. And usually it's something really oddball for him to have to want it.
Yeah. So back to Rick. You know, I'm the guy that goes out to shows, and you guys are usually here,
Right.
with
Yep.
the exception of the National. And so, you know, I hear so many compliments about our company, and makes me feel proud. And a lot of those compliments are in regards to the way something is packed, or the way that something is shipped, or the way that the time period it takes for authentication to get taken care of. And just, we're in the warehouse right now. It's super organized. We know where everything's at. Nothing really gets lost or misplaced or anything like that. And that's largely in part to Rick and his talents and his abilities. So a little bit about Rick is Rick was in the military. And so, Rick, could you talk a little bit about your background and what you did in the military?
Joined the Army at 18, right out of high school. I went in for a couple of years and got out. And then I was in the Army Reserves for a while, and I found out within the Army Reserves there was a program called AGR, which is basically you work active duty every day in reserve units. And I got kind of into that, and ended up doing that for about the next 18 plus years. And so I retired in 2005 with over 20 years of service. And I was in logistics the entire time. Lots of different, the one thing about like a supply sergeant, I don't want to bore you guys, but we can go anywhere. You know, if you're an artilleryman, you're going to go to an artillery unit. Well, if you're a supply sergeant, you can go anywhere. And I did an artillery unit. That was my first assignment. I was stationed over in the Netherlands. And then I did everything from a hospital, training divisions, and my last assignment was an aviation unit. So, you know, it's not like I had to learn one thing. You kind of have to learn everything.
Yeah.
And fortunately, you know, it was pretty good for me. It was a good career. And then I got down towards the over 20-year mark, and honestly, I was gonna stay. I was gonna do 30. I was enrolled in the Sergeant Major's course at the time, and came home, and I went out to dinner with Steve, and we kind of talked. I'm like, you know, I mean, I'd coming off a deployment, and I was traveling a lot for the Army, and I needed to be at home. I had 2 young daughters, and if I was going to stay in, it would have been nothing but more traveling and deployments. So I decided that it was best for my daughters to go ahead and retire, and I came to work for Steve, slinging cardboard.
Yeah.
I remember at your 20-year, what would have been called, a graduation party from
My
the military?
retirement ceremony, yeah.
It was either you or one of your bosses above you who said, yeah, Rick's pretty much going to get out of the military and sell baseball cards now for a living. And a lot of people kind of tilted their heads, not understanding, you know, the depth of what we did.
Yeah, right.
So,
Exactly.
yep. But a lot of people laughed at that.
Yeah, that was my last boss in the Army. He was a great guy. He was super, just a really great boss. He listened, and he accepted, you know, all my recommendations, I guess you'd say. But he was a really, like, I can't emphasize, he was a really good guy. And I remember he always liked to talk to the troops. You know, he'd like to get down and say, all right, so you want to get out of the Army, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's time. This and he's like, well, what are you going to do? What's your future? And I said, I'm going to sell baseball cards. He said, what? I said, yeah. And obviously, it's a very generic term when you sell baseball cards because there's a lot more to it than just that. But yeah, so he was good. I'm still in contact with him today, and I've been working for Steve now. I'm coming up to that point where it's almost as many years and days working for Steve as I was in the Army. So
Yeah. A lot of people don't understand when you say, I'm going to sell baseball cards, and they think, how is there any money in that
Yep, exactly.
today?
But you were able to stay home,
Yep.
not
Yeah.
have to move anymore,
Right.
Be home with your daughters, so
Yep. Yep.
worked out well.
Yep.
For me too.
Yeah.
So.
So logistics are a big part of this business, and it saves a lot of money when you do the research. I know when I started, Rick was always giving me little, I don't want to say pep talks, but giving me words of wisdom. A 16 by 12 by 12, that's perfect for a pallet. And so you start appreciating certain box sizes. Then you become a box snob. I don't want that box.
It's just perfect weight to carry upstairs.
Exactly.
They fit perfectly on a pallet. So,
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and then like building pallets. Rick has pretty high standards, and so when you're out on the field and you're buying a deal, you want to make sure that you are building the pallet. If I'm in California and I'm shipping a pallet back to our warehouse, I go, okay, I got to build this pallet because Rick's going to take a look at it, and I want to make sure it's right.
Yep. The
and
better
looks good.
stuff on the bottom, in the middle, that's
Yes,
solid.
exactly.
The looser stuff at top. So yep.
Exactly.
The black wrap has to cover everything. Don't want a driver to see what's in there.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, we've been doing this a long time, and if you don't wrap it properly, it's going to fall over. Now, when it falls over in the trucking warehouse, they don't really care.
Right.
They just kind of get as much back on that pallet, and they throw it on there. So, honestly, over the last 20 plus years, whatever, we haven't really lost that much stuff, but we have lost stuff. And then it's also like when we ship to our customers, I'm like, hey, and you were talking about our shipping standards and stuff like that. And Darren, the guy that does the majority of our shipping, I would say, hey, this is yours. How would you want to receive it?
Exactly.
And this isn't about quantity; it's about quality. So, I mean, that's something we try to take a lot of pride in, is getting our stuff out safe and secure. And
We want to get it out quick, but not quick at packaging it.
Right.
Take
Right.
your time, do it right.
So if there's orders, just quickly, if someone's purchasing on our website, how quickly do you usually get those orders out?
the baseline is any order that's received before noon goes out that day. If I get an order in at 1 o'clock or something like that, and it's an overnight order, we'll try to get it out again. But basically, that's our deadline and our baseline for orders is anything before noon goes out the next day. And then, if obviously that's regular work days.
Sure.
If there's a holiday or something like that, obviously, but usually we're here anyways on holidays. So, but everything is typically shipped within 24 business hours.
Okay, and we'll sort of end with this. Last couple of years, we've redone our website, and we've tried to make it as user friendly as possible. So we won't talk about the authentication side or the buying side, but when an order is made on our website, the buyer now has the opportunity to pick the shipping services that they want to use. Do you want to run down that real quick?
Well, I mean, when you place an order, you get to pick your shipping service, just like you said. And
It's usually several different.
right, I mean, we
Options,
have everything
yeah.
is available for USPS, UPS, and FedEx. That's all on the website, and that's our three main ones. We ship those every day: FedEx, Express, and Ground. The one thing I've noticed with our new website is that 90% of our orders are mail, and it's because we get a negotiated rate through Shopify that is super inexpensive for people.
Shopify is pretty good at informing you of fraud alerts.
All right.
Low, medium, and high. Sometimes those take a day or two extra because now Rick has to look into a lot of things. And most of the time it's just a credit card doesn't match the shipping address and they're fine. But, you really got to look into who you're shipping it to, where you're shipping it to, match more things up and look into it. So some of those orders take a little longer to get out.
Right. And we actually had a fraudulent order come in overnight, and it's a medium risk. And it's basically because it looks to me like somebody is working in one location and they're away from home. So like
Oh, the IP doesn't match up.
Yeah.
the
right.
IP address is 1,653 miles away from whatever. So that's a big red flag for them, and then I just sit down and I figure out, is it worth rolling the dice with Steve's money, or do we just go along with
Exactly.
it?
If you remember, Rick, during COVID, we got taken quite a bit.
So, oh, yeah.
everybody was stuck at home, and a lot of the criminals, I think, just had more time to
Yeah.
sit back and come up with things.
Yeah, wasn't there an expensive box that we?
Oh, there was 5-figure items that
That's
we,
what I
we
thought.
shipped to an empty house. And
That was one of the scams during COVID, and I'm sure it's still going on today, is people would put an address to a house that was for sale that was empty. And then, people show up and they drop it on the porch and the people take it away. So we've changed a lot of our systems for, signature required and stuff like that. So basically our insurance policy, if the order is over $1,000, it needs to be signature required.
Okay.
So that's...
And the only reason this happened so much is, like I said, during COVID, that we got taken was because for decades we never had this problem. We never
Exactly.
had a single fraud. And then, of course, during COVID, the more of the slimy stuff came out, and we started getting taken, and then that's when we had to go to new measures to check things out.
We tried to coordinate with some of the bigger baseball card stores and dealers and stuff, kind of as a warning back and forth. Hey, check this out, and they'd say, hey, check this out. So
Yep.
a lot of communication. We've got a small handful of dealers that we keep real close with, and they've always been very helpful.
But yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts in the BBCE operation, the BBCE warehouse. And so hopefully today you've enjoyed just a little sneak peek, if you will, into the back room, if you will, of Baseball Card Exchange. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Steve, for being a part of this. And we hope you enjoyed it today on the Baseball Card Exchange podcast.